Well, it's time now for a look at some of the day's business news, and for that I'm joined in the studio by Cole Stangler. Hi, Cole.
Yeah, Axie.
You're starting with a look at record growth figures coming out of China.
Yeah, that's right. The country just released its GDP data for the first 3 months of the year. The results are pretty impressive. During that stretch, China's economy grew by some 18.3% when compared to the same period last year. The number is especially high because of last year's downturn and actually falls just below analyst expectations, but still the fastest pace since records began and shows the strength of the Chinese recovery. Lauren Berstecker explains.
A sharp turnaround after a difficult year. China's economy showed signs of bouncing back from the COVID-19 crisis as it expanded at its fastest rate on record in the first quarter of 2021.
初步核算，一季度国内生产总值24.9310亿元，按可比价格计算，同比增长18.3%。
The economic rebound owed much to the low base figure of 2020's first quarter, which was badly impacted by the global pandemic. But it also demonstrated sustained growth in several key sectors. China's industrial output rose by 24.5% in the first quarter of 2021, and retail sales surged by nearly 34%, a figure largely driven by an impressive boom in domestic consumption as life slowly returned to normal. This was cause for optimism in a country which has historically relied more on exports than on domestic household spending. Yet Chinese authorities warned not to read too much into these figures, as they expected growth to remain modest for the rest of the year amid lingering international uncertainty.
当然，我们同时也要看到，目前国内外的环境国际疫情仍在蔓延，国际环境依然是复杂严峻，国内经济恢复的基础尚不牢固。
With industrial output expected to slow down in the coming months, China's domestic consumption boom is likely to remain a key factor as the country seeks to sustain its post-pandemic recovery.
Let's take a look now at how markets are faring to close out the week. European markets hanging just around the flat line, concerns over the health situation looming over investors. The FTSE up just slightly. I'll figure out those figures there, as you can see. The FTSE up just slightly, about 0.25%. Slight losses on the CAC, just about even, actually. Asian indexes with some slight gains. Not much of a reaction we're seeing to that data coming out of China. Gains across the board, though, and on the Nikkei in Tokyo. That's ahead of the U.S.-Japan summit in Washington today.
Now, Cole, later today, EU economy and finance ministers are scheduled to meet over video conference. What can we expect from that?
Yeah, on the agenda, of course, is the economic recovery in the Eurozone. Ministers slated to discuss state aid, but also implementation of the EU's stimulus plan. Last year, EU states agreed to a €750 billion spending package. That aid's expected to start going out to member states this summer. Brussels, though, still sorting out the details on how to generate revenue to help finance that spending. Several countries also still need to ratify the legal framework that authorizes that stimulus to begin with.
Well, now to Australia, where a federal judge has ruled that Google misled consumers about the collection of data.
Yeah, more precisely, we're talking about location data from users of Android mobile devices from early 2017 to late 2018. According to the judge, Google failed to inform consumers their data was being collected and stored through a setting called Web and App Activity, a setting that was turned on by default. Google is considering an appeal to the full bench of the country's federal court. Australia's consumer watchdog, which brought the case, though, says it's content with the decision.
We think today's result sends a very clear message to the digital platforms that they have to be upfront with consumers about what is actually happening with their data, how it's being used, and how consumers can, in fact, protect their data. These are fundamental issues for Australians going forward in this future digital economy. It's crucial, therefore, that we get some court rulings in relation to what platforms can and can't do.
And finally, an about face from the world's most profitable sports league. A longtime opponent of legalized gambling, the U.S. National Football League has inked deals with 3 gambling companies to become official sports betting partners. That's Caesars, DraftKings, and FanDuel, though terms of the agreements were not announced. The move follows a landmark Supreme Court decision back in 2018 that paves the way for American states to offer legalized sports betting. The latest sign of how the ruling is shaking up the gambling landscape in the U.S. Haxie, back in February, that's a month with the most recent available data we have, at least $4 billion wagered on sports alone in the US.
I can tell you I was not among them. Cole Stanger with a look through the day's top business stories. Thank you very much.